Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today. We get to learn a little bit on story time, and we're going to learn some things that are extremely important. Finances are always a huge thing, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you, Mike, because I already went and stalked you on your on your website. And I love how you talk about the way that you guys do financing different, that you start with people's stories, not with the strategies and the portfolio. So I'm already in love with that. So I can't wait to dive in. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Well, I'm in love with your podcast, right? Just the fact that the different stories you have, and doing a podcast and a radio show myself, I know sometimes how hard it is to get a guest to fill time up. We will have no problem with that today.
We're going to have to watch time. Okay, I got it. I'll
Right.
make sure I pay attention. I love that. Thank you so much. So, as we are diving in, then one of my favorite things to do is to let my guests share who they are and what it is that they do versus just reading a bio. So, fill us in, Mike. Who are you and what is it that you do?
Well, I'm a little small town boy from North Carolina originally that has, I've always kind of had big dreams, inspired by people around me. More so than just like internally. I would love to just stay on the couch every day or sit at the beach and do absolutely nothing. But, I have surrounded myself throughout my whole life with people that are just inspiring to me. Like when I was younger, it was my grandmother. She just poured love into me and then brought me along in a business that she started. Eventually, when I went to college, it was professors who said, you've got more. You've got more. There's more to you than what you're bringing to us. It was coaches in baseball along the way. Now it's my wife, it's my kids, it's my staff, right, who inspire me on a daily basis. But most of all, it's like my clients at One Oak Financial. We build a company that is uniquely about clients, not about, like you said, portfolios, numbers on a spreadsheet, returns. We're trying to help people realize that the financial system can work for them, not against them. And One Oak stands for one of a kind. So One of a Kind Financial exists because we believe people live a one of a kind life.
I was definitely a huge fan of that because I know it's on your website that it talks about not fitting you into the box. That is
Right.
like one of my absolute favorite phrases.
Yes.
Because I believe that while we all have overlapping things and ways that life is done and things that happen to us and so on and so forth, it's really hard to take one particular way that somebody has done and has become successful in or whatever that is for them, and then take and just replicate it for a different person when you don't know their perceptions, the things that they've been through, like all the pieces and components in the background, right? Like you can use it as a rough guide, but I feel like we as individuals also need the opportunity to build outside of that box as well. I think it's very self-sustaining, and it's also a huge confidence booster when you feel like it is being created for you.
Well, it's true because like doing something over and over and over again the same way is what corporations do to make profits. It's not what people do to live. And so I'll give you an example of that. When Ray Kroc was in his 50s and he convinced the McDonald's brothers to give them his restaurant, he wanted to take it from this little sleepy milkshake and burger stand out in California to a national brand. And so they basically created two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. It's a Big Mac. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in California, New York City, Houston, Texas, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Puerto Rico. It doesn't matter where you are, you're getting the same Big Mac everywhere. See, that's one size fits all. So when you walk into McDonald's, you're getting a Big Mac. And people like that sometimes. They like that consistency in their life sometimes. But the other 98% of their time, they're off doing their own thing. They're, some people surf, some people ride bikes, some people, take walks with their dog. Everybody gets excitement in life from something else. They don't get excitement in their life from the two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. And so that one size fits all world is not what we want to live. That's called, we often don't go live somebody else's life, because if you do, you're robbing the earth of what it's really needed, and that's your uniqueness. And so one of a kind, being one of a kind is really a movement that is almost, it goes against corporate America, the corporate profits, where everybody's name gets lost in a system where people become account numbers versus having a story, a true life to live, something to share. And so we're building a financial firm that's impact over profit, and it's about you, not about the corporate the corporate ecosystem.
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of that. So thank you, especially in the financial space. I think that it can be so intimidating and
Yeah.
overwhelming, in that space, especially when I talk to a lot of like female entrepreneurs, right? That's a whole nother different space for us to be in when it comes to finances and stuff like that. And having people that are willing to actually have a conversation to figure out the direction that we're wanting to go, to listen to the story, to be able to put the things together is so wonderful in something that feels so big, and being able to kind of almost take it in bite-sized pieces.
Right. Do you know that you know the term, since you speak to a lot of women entrepreneurs, you know what the term diva is, right? Right. And do you think that's a positive name when you're called a diva, or a negative connotation?
I think that most people use it as a negative connotation. I choose to use it as my own,
Right.
but that's just me.
A major CEO of a Fortune 50 company, so one of the 50 biggest companies in America, just came out this week and said, hire the diva. Work with
Really?
yes. He said they actually care more about their work, because if they care about their appearance, they have a certain a flair about them, that they're unique. They're better for the company because they challenge the status quo. In companies that need to grow, whether you're working with a contractor or have an employee, hire the diva, right? Because they're going to bring something different than kind of just the average person who's just going to follow what's already there. So divas bring growth, according to this.
I
CEO.
love this. This is amazing. I
If you look on my website for One Oak Financial, you're going to see a whole bunch of divas on there. And I say that with a lot of respect, because they are truly unique, one of a kind people who I genuinely care for, but they bring something totally different to our firm. We have intentionally gone out and tried to find the best of the best people to work for us. And often what we found to run, like my chief operating officer, Caitlin, is she's one of the best operators of a company that's out there. And she came from the U.S. judicial system. Like she was a federal judge's clerk when she came
wow.
over to us. And Quayshawn and Kelsey and Liz and Katie, they just are great operators of business who respectfully, they're a little bit of a diva. I say that with a good term.
I love that. You know what, though? I wholeheartedly respect and adore that you see that in that light, because there are so many people in the corporation spaces where, they don't want to be challenged. They say that they do, but they really
Right.
don't want to be challenged, right? And I've been in spaces like that. I mean, when I was in corporate, when I was in the medical field, you always had people that are like, oh, we're looking for ingenuity. No, you're not, because every time I bring it to the table, you slap it down or you tell me it's
Mhm.
this or it can't work because of that, right? And I love the fact of like this is my goal as I start hiring people in my space is how do I find people that are outspoken, that do have their own ideas? Because my brain can only work so much and I only see things in my perspective, right? So being able to have individuals surrounding you that have a different perspective can bring a totally different outlook on things. You get so many more ideas that you would never have come up with.
There's no doubt about that because I have a podcast called Ideas by Mike that used to be the name of my company, and I generally come up with a lot of crazy ideas that my team will be like, no, we're good, no more. But the reason I have that name or podcast is because ideas are what get people out of bed every morning. The idea that I can make an impact, the idea that I get to see this client today, or I get to change somebody's future, I get to help them realize they're one of a kind. That idea is what gets people motivated and gets people going. Nobody gets really. There's some people who gets motivated by work. Some people get motivated by work. Very few. A lot of people get motivated by solutions. People get motivated by problems, but nobody's really saying the people that dread coming to the office, the dread that are people that work. We have ideas, we identify problems, we solve them, and we provide those solutions at the end of them.
I think that's wonderful. Now, I want to backtrack just a little bit because now I want to know how did we get here? How did you become
Yeah.
who you are today to have this beautifully open perspective, to have the people on your team that you have, to create this idea of financial, but one of a kind? So I got to figure out how did we get here?
So um, if you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, the answer would have been different because it ever evolves, and I'm always I'm not always, but I go to reflection mode from time to time. I reflect on the clients I have, the life I live, but I reflectively look back, and I've been telling this story for 20 years, but like my first client was my grandmother, Granny Elizabeth.
Oh,
Granny Elizabeth, when I was 11 years old, got some really bad news. The love of her life, Walter, my pa, was injured and could no longer work. And so he owned a construction company. We would call that a handyman service now, but he owned a construction company. And when he could no longer work, the income dried up. And so she had to do something to make income. And she was a great wife, great mother, great grandmother, but she was also a good cook. And so she started selling collared sandwiches. Um,
what?
right, exactly. Collards inside of two deep fried cornbread buns.
Oh,
She
that
made
sounds
every.
amazing.
It's really good. It's really good. But she would make them, and then what she would do is she would start selling them at job sites where my pa used to work. She would sell them, give them to convenience stores to sell for her, and then she would go on the festival circuit. And the interesting part about that is my mom worked, my mom was working 12 hours a day, right? She was, school was not 12 hours a day. So Granny took me to school. She picked me up from school. My pa and I would go out and deliver these sandwiches together while he was still alive. But then a couple years into that, he got a terminal diagnosis, a cancer, and he was gone. So here's my
Mm.
granny at the age of 65, love of her life gone, running a business to sustain herself and carrying this 11, 12, 13-year-old along for the ride. I got to count the money with her. They didn't believe in banks, so we put money in Folgers coffee cans up in the cupboard. Um, so I went with her to pay like her Bell Atlantic phone bill, the cable bill. Everything was paid in person back then. They paid the power bill. I went with her, and we would go sell sandwiches. If we had enough money, we would go pay a bill. And I remember being in the car with her when she did, she's like, "Woo, I don't have to do that again for another month." Right. And it was just like, I got to live like the life of an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that all through high school. Like I became almost her chief financial officer, right? I logged the money in a spiral bound notebook so she knew how much she had in the cupboards. She would take the big bills, like the $20 bill, $50 bill, $100 bills. She would wrap them and bundle them together like a bank teller would, but then she would put tin foil on them and write liver on the tin foil and put it in the freezer. Because she said, if somebody's going to rob from us, they're not going to take the liver. I mean, that amount of small town wisdom, right?
Wow.
That I can always, like, I've studied Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett's life and, Clark Howard, Tony Robbins. I know all of these gurus and what they teach about growing businesses and all this, but every time that I'm in a tough situation, I go back and think, what would Granny do? In my mind, she ran the most successful small business I've ever seen in my life, right? A product that was non-existent, or, putting some things together to make a product like cornmeal and collards from the outside garden.
Yeah.
And she wrapped them and she would take them and sell them for $5 at a time that a Big Mac cost $1. She was selling love. Like when I look back on her, she was selling love. She was selling a one-of-a-kind experience, because people were tired of cheeseburgers from fast food places. They wanted something homegrown. And she gave that to them in the little small town. And so, like, from a business standpoint, when I was approaching high school or getting to high school, she would tell me, "You're going to college and you're going to figure this out." Along the journey of helping her in this business, we had to open a bank account because the cupboards got too full of money. So we walked into a bank and there was a guy wearing a suit there. I thought he was the sharpest guy I'd ever seen in my life. And I wanted to wear a suit. I don't wear suits anymore, but I wanted to wear a suit at that point in my life. And the only other person I knew that wore suits was the preacher man, and I did not want to be the preacher man, right? I did not want to work Sundays. The reason I didn't want to be the preacher man is because, sometimes he would talk for 30 minutes, sometimes he would talk for 3 hours and miss football. I didn't want to do that, right? I just wanted
Priorities, Mike. Priorities.
You're getting into the mind of a 16-year-old Mike right now. That's what
I love it.
So I eventually I asked him, "How did you get this job?" He learned more about college. Nobody in my family had gone to college, so we ended up going to Campbell, learning about banking. But then I learned, when I was there, I learned about investing in trust and estates. I learned about insurance and real estate. And my first job was not as a banker per se. It was as a trust officer and as an investment manager at the age of 23 years old. And so I dove right into it. This little small town kid that grew up in a single wide trailer, whose grandmother had a third grade education and started a business that sustained a life for the rest of her life. And me just counting dollars and pennies and writing them on a spiral bound notebook, to at 23 helping with millions and millions and millions of dollars of accounts. It was just like, it's mind blowing now that I think about it. And so I did work in corporate America for about 10 years, big major Wall Street banks and insurance, before I decided to go independent and create what is now One Oak Financial.
I love that it sounds like you got to really see like the inside of several different departments and ways that money was handled, to be able to take in all the information, right? But then really be able to build what you call one of a kind.
So I've always had this ability to speak to people. So even like when I was on the 7th floor of the World Trade Center in Norfolk, Virginia, not New York City, but Norfolk, Virginia had a World Trade Center. And I was on the 7th floor working there at Wachovia. And it was a very routine week, right? 9 a.m. sales meeting every week. We talked about what we did in a conference room. Every person in the department, we talked about what we did the previous week, what we're doing this week. And we didn't talk about it in terms of the names we were meeting with. We talked about the number of meetings, the number of new accounts, the amount of profit we were going. In an hour meeting, no names were mentioned. But I was also this guy that I was very hungry to be able to connect with people. So I would go out every day. I'd work from like 9 to 12 in the office, and I'd just go out in the community. I'd just meet people. I would call it being out in the wild. I didn't know people. I was just knocking on doors, and I was just getting to know people, right? I'd show up at Chick-fil-A and like, why are you here at noon every day, right? I'd go to lunch every day at a different place, and I'd walk in there by myself, look at somebody else sitting along. I'd be like, hey, do you mind if I just chat with you for a minute? And I tell them what I do, ask what they do, and say, why are you here at lunch by yourself, right? And just connect with people. But what I learned, though, is like through my interaction with people, but my inner workings of these major banks and insurance companies is that they're very rules-based, whereas an individual, an individual's life doesn't always follow the rules. So the bank, insurance company, we're trying to actually apply past rules to somebody's future. And your future is spotless. It literally is without, we do not know what we're doing tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years. We all have hopes and dreams and goals. We sometimes call that bucket list. But the reality is it's spotless. It's never been lived. And so many people drag the past into their future. And that's what corporations want to do. That's what I learned. And so now, like when I decided to go independent, when I decided to build something for me and my clients, I'd said, listen, we're going to have a vision for what the future looks like. And in that vision, we're going to use what you have for you to execute it. Just like my granny did, right? She was a hardworking woman, but I want people that want to spend more time with their grandkids. They want to, they want to retire. They actually want to stop working, that they want to travel. They want to go see the Grand Canyon or, Zion's, all the national parks out west, or they want to go down to South America or Europe for that kind of once in a lifetime trip. I want to show them a way to do that versus being on their deathbed and them saying, I wish I would have. Right.
Yeah.
So I when I decided to go independent, it was all about how could we build the one of a kind life that people wanted and then use money to actually get there.
I love this. And you even have it on your website as well, which it was one of the things that caught me, which was, we take time to understand your values, your vision for retirement, and what legacy truly means to you. I love that because legacy, dreams, goals, like it means wealth means something different to so many different people, and yet we try to stick everyone under one defined definition. And I have learned, especially being in this space over the last several years, that when you ask people, what are your dreams? What are your big goals? Or what does wealth mean to you? I get different answers. And there are some people that, it is rooted in money and things like that, which is totally fine. But then you get others that for them, it's just like you're saying, they want to be able to travel. They want to be able to stay more time with family. They want to just be able to have freedom to feel like they can do whatever it is they want to do, right? To experience that. And so I love that your vision is a world where everyday people live in the most fulfilled, empowered, and soul-aligned way, not by chance, but by strategy rooted in their truth. Like, I fell in love with your website. I just kept reading all the things on it because I was like, this is my language. This is fantastic.
But we have to acknowledge that people have fears. They're anxious.
Yeah.
They have worries. And, a really great financial planner will alleviate those things to bring clarity where there's like uncertainty. And that's the ones of us that do that. And there's others. I'm not the only one out there in the marketplace doing this, but the ones of us that do this are the ones that have clients doing really crazy things, right? I know where, we have so many clients, but like our best clients, I know exactly where they are and what they're doing right now because they tell me their travel plans. Like I'll get a random email that says, I just booked a trip to the Dolomites, or, we're going to Europe for 6 weeks. If you need us, we'll still be available via email, right? We get those emails in from our clients, right? We the book I wrote, the One of a Kind Financial Plan, we just recently sent some copies out to some new clients. And I have a new client that's 67 years old that we sent him, and he sends me a text picture of the book on his nightstand and says, "It'll be the first book I've read since high school." This guy's 67 years old. Right.
Wow.
But here's the thing, right? He is he's wealthy in terms of like numbers. He didn't read books. He'd read newspaper articles, or he would consume data other ways. It's not like he's dumb. It just it wasn't his way to read. Now
Yeah.
he sent me a picture that he's got it, and then he sent me a picture of being on like chapter 8, and he said I chuckled in this chapter. Now what he doesn't know is he thinks that chapter was about him, but it's a chapter about a lot of people. I just know what period people experience when they go into retirement, and so people read the book and they see themselves in it. And at the end of the day, we're trying to be inspirational for people to realize that retirement used to be a rocking chair on your front porch and a gold watch when you retired. Retirement now is a phase of activity. It's a phase.
Yeah.
It's a whole different. There's a lot of chapters that can be written when you turn in, the time card for, some plane tickets or a travel itinerary or that free time with the family, the people you care about the most.
Yeah. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay, so now I've got questions
Yep.
then in regards to the finance aspect, right? Because I have had people on here, it's been a while, but I've had some people on here before that were, somewhere in that industry that were trying to explain how simple things can be. And it still feels, with a lot of people that I speak with, confusing and overwhelming. So let's kind of start with some of the basics, right? First off, where does your company come into the picture, right? Because you know that some people will say, "Oh, well, you can't work with us until you have X amount of dollars, or you have assets that are blah 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 blah," right? So where does your company come in to help someone to begin with?
One size fits all. That's what you just described right there. You can't be with us until you fit this one size fits all.
Yep.
It's crazy to me. It's absolutely insane. We because of the depth of our company, right? We have 23 professionals. We have a lot of people who contract with us to below the surface, like as our support people. It's a trading team that is a separate company altogether. We have enough talent in our company that has the same vision, the same mantra of building one-of-a-kind financial plans, that if you need help, we can help you. We have one person purely devoted to helping people get out of debt. So you're
Okay.
36 years old, you found yourself with some bad life choices or things that have happened to you, and you need debt help. We're not debt counselors. We're not going to sell you a program that like says we'll consolidate it all. That's not what we do. We're not about the product. We're about the people. So we'll actually talk people through that solution. The people that are maybe not rich yet but have good income, right? They still need guidance because a lot of times what people, when they're working, they have kids, they're going to punch the clock, then take kids to soccer practice, then grab Chick-fil-A on the way home, and then put the kids to bed, and then rinse and repeat, right? Those people don't have time to understand, is the 401k or retirement account I have invested right? And so
Absolutely.
we focus, we will help you get the right investments there. And that so like those people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, income but not rich yet, we help them. And then we help pre-retirees, people about 10 years from retirement, to build a vision for what retirement could be, right? What will their community like? What will be the focus on their health, and what will be the impact that they'll have in retirement? We build that vision so that they have something to look forward to. And then people that are actually retired, those folks are, I won't say they're our bread and butter, but we love living life with them. Because, while we're working every day, we get those emails from, Kevin and Joanne that are out in the Dolomites, or, you know, Susan, who has, you know, taken her niece down to the ocean front, right? We get those, we love those people, right? But there's no minimums. We don't say you got to have $5 million to work with us. We got to say you have to desire a one of a kind life. You have to want to break the mold of like what traditional financial advisors want for you, so that you can have what you want. And if you want that, One Oak Financial's for you. We're not going to not give advice just because you can't pay, because we are impact over profit. We are about changing the way Americans view their relationship with money, to give it a positive aspect for them to actually have some great things. I have a personal mission. Like, so One Oak Financial is to build the one of a kind financial plan for your one of a kind life. I have a personal mission that everybody in my company has adopted. And it's just 3 words: educate, coach, and plan. 3 words. That was 4 words, actually, because I added A in there. Educate, coach, plan. That's what we do. So somebody reaches out to us on the website. They schedule a meeting with us. We ask them a question like, why is money important to you? And we don't, when we say that, right, we're not, a lot of people will hear like a financial planner saying that, and they'll be like, well, I have a 401k, or I have this, or no, we like, that's great. We'll get to that. Why is money important to you? What does it represent? And then they'll answer that question, and then we'll ask them why. And then we'll ask why again. And then we'll spend a lot of this time. And then we'll ask them, what tools do they use? Like, have you used advisors before? Have you used like people at your work? Did your parents talk to you about money? Like, what's your first memory of money? And then we'll get to the point where we'll ask them, like, is AI part of your everyday world? Do you use that for anything? And then we'll actually coach them on how to use AI. Like, for our next meeting, think about, before you go off and do the next thing at the end here, we're going to schedule our next meeting. But what I want you to do is write down the things you said, and then I want you to ask your preferred AI, what questions should I ask Mike at One Oak Financial the next time we get together? So so that's a different use of AI, right? Most people are using AI to say, help me fix my budget. You know, what should I
give me
invest
the
in?
answers?
No, like what I encourage people to do is I encourage them to talk to a very experienced financial professional they trust, and use AI next to them to formulate the questions. What have I not asked them? You know, what are the things use AI to be prepared for the next meeting, not to plan your life. Use those who've experienced it. I mean, I've got 30 years of experience in this. I teach at a university. I teach principles and ethics of financial planning. I teach personal financial planning. But I also coach other advisors, my team and others. And then I build financial plans and write books to help people. AI is a tool that should be used to enhance a relationship. It shouldn't be the final place you go to get the answer. And we train our clients to use AI the right way, because there's never been a time to get more clarity about your money when you have actually experienced financial professionals and you got the power of AI right there, all working together to put together something for you. You want to talk about feeling better when you have your questions and your AI servant robot giving you the questions to answer to. You feel so much better in that. And so I'm a big advocate for everyone. If you need somebody to talk about financial decisions, even though you may be in debt, or you may have income but not rich yet, or you're close to retirement, you know, you got an inheritance, you feel like something is coming, you're worried about aging parents, like you're worried about their capacity to deal with their money. You need somebody to help convince your parents to help you age. Maybe you're worried about funding a kid's college, right? You're like, my kid really wants to go to college, and I know maybe college is not the best thing right now based off what they want to do, but I want to give them the experience. How do I pay for it? We can help advocate and walk you through the system that, by the way, is too complicated, right? The college planning process is
absolutely. It is so complicated.
The tax system is complicated, right? Most people just get their taxes done, get a return at the end, and they have no idea what it says. It's complicated. The investment world, we used to have just some mutual funds out there, a few mutual fund companies. Now the types of investments we have out there, there's too many of them, and we're getting hit every day with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram people
Yep.
who say you should do this. We can help bring some clarity and bring some tools to the equation to help educate, coach, and plan people that want to build a one-of-a-kind financial plan.
Speaking of your tools, you have on your website too that you talk about holistic tools, which
Yeah.
is very interesting to me when we're using that term with finances. That is, I'm curious on what that means and what that states. And then my other question is for anyone else, and you can answer this one secondly if you'd like. Let's say that someone is thinking about getting help from someone, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they've got a little bit of money. What is the difference between like a financial advisor and other people that do like the investments and the fiduciaries and all? Because I feel like there's 10,000 different names for those that can help. Obviously, I get that there are people that do stocks and bonds and all that stuff, but like, what is the difference for someone to understand who they should even go speak to?
So I speak to both of those questions that you just asked there about the holistic side and like what people should I be using. I speak to that in my book, The One of a Kind Financial Plan, but I'll give like a brief description of both theirs right now. So like holistic tools are, a tool is great, right? Like a hammer is a really good tool, but if you have a screw that needs to be screwed in, a hammer can get the job done, but good luck getting that screw out of that hole in the future, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of companies that have a lot of tools, but are they using the tool for the right project? And so
Mm,
we break money decisions into 5 key categories: taxes, retirement income, investments, long-term care, and that includes your health care, and then your legacy. Now, in there, in all of those segments, there are some sub segments like college planning, buying your first house. That would be in like in the investment world. So, but we break them into those. And so, if you try to use a tool like Holistiplan, which is a tax estimation tool and a tax interpretation tool, like how do you actually lower your taxes? If you try to use
okay.
it on an investment portfolio, you've got the wrong tool for the wrong solution. So we
Mm,
have tools. We have hammers for nails, screwdrivers for screwdrivers, saws to cut wood, right? We have air pumps to blow up the tires when that nail
okay.
gets in your tire and the tires go. So we have holistic tools. We are a full service provider, and we use the right tool for the right solution. Now, to your other question about you have some money to invest and you wonder like who should I trust, right? That's really the question you asked is how do I know that this person is going to put my interest forward, my interest before theirs when it comes to the recommendation they make? They I despise our industry sometimes. If you haven't gotten this in this podcast, guys, there are really good people in the industry, but I don't really like corporations. Corporations have ruined this money for us, right? Because they have created these processes in place that get salespeople just to sell the same thing. And I could rant about this all day, right? But I can tell you the top 10 financial companies in America. I can tell you their solution right now. If you named them, I can tell you what they're going to provide every single person that walks in the door. And see,
Mm,
that's what I'd call one size fits all. And so then we have in the individual space, like I have some money and I want to go meet with somebody. We have this term that's been around forever, right? It's been around since trusts were created under use with like the old British parliamentary system in America, right? The word is fiduciary. Fiduciary and now it's a buzzword, right? I am a
yeah.
fiduciary. You should work with a fiduciary. Well, fiduciary is a word that is a noun and a verb. Okay. So I can be a fiduciary. I can act as a fiduciary, but it comes down to licensing because the only
Okay.
real fiduciary by noun is somebody registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's the only fiduciary.
Interesting.
So if somebody is not, as a person, if they're not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission as investment advisory representative or registered investment advisory advisor, they are technically, they're by noun a fiduciary. Well, then you got the action. Okay, I can act as a fiduciary. Or so this is the thing that everybody says, but the
Yep.
act of a fiduciary has so many different, right, applications. So, like, if you're trying to work with a fiduciary, you work with somebody registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? If you want somebody, but that is not everybody, right? That's actually a small percentage of the financial people that are out there, very small, because then you have insurance agents, you have FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which they work on a suitability standpoint. Is it right at this time? Then you have CPAs, and I love CPAs, absolutely love them, right? But they're focused on taxes. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have then you have fee only investment people, right? CFPs, CHFCs. There's all these
Mm-hmm.
designations out there. So the end of it is, I would tell you to find somebody you can trust who has an educator's heart, who actually will educate you on the solution versus saying just sign here. This is why we're doing this for you. And if you could find that person and you feel comfortable that you think they're doing in your best interest, you may discover in the future they didn't do what was in your best interest. But that's why, we go out and get second opinions from time to time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't always take the first option that's in front of you. You find somebody that you relate with and then find out, are they doing what's in your best interest from a noun standpoint as a person, but also as an action? And then you kind of go from there. And I said I speak more about that in my book. I speak more about that in my book because and matter of fact, I have a lot of people who said, I cannot believe you revealed that about our industry in written form. You have to, because if we're going to educate, coach, and plan people, help them out, they need to know what's behind the curtain, right?
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz, right? When they found out that the Wizard of Oz was just this little dwarf guy, right? This little guy who really had no power. He was just mystical in nature. They realized that, man, I really had this in me to do it all along. That's what we want people to realize. There's no Wizard of Oz out there who knows everything about money. There's really what's the power of what your money is really lies in you, who you are, what your beliefs are. And a really good financial professional will help uplift that so you can go out and live, the life that you're meant to live.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate so much there's a gnat in my face. I appreciate so much your honesty in this realm as well, because again, it feels so overwhelming and so confusing. And I get that technically some of that is actually meant to be that way so that people will use other people. It's just like taxes, right? Taxes are meant to be confusing so that you will hire other people to do the things. But I thank you for breaking that down because I have heard people use that term so much, fiduciary, but I've also heard people explain it as someone that puts your interest first. And I was like, I get that. And I feel like there's a lot of people like using that word. So it felt a little confusing. So thank you because that clears it up for me. But I'm sure that there are so many people because it is becoming a buzzword. It is
Yeah.
all over the internet right now that that's who you're supposed to hire and all that. I didn't know that it could be used both as a noun and a verb, so that makes a lot more sense now.
Well, thanks. That's what we try to do is we try to make the complex simple. And sometimes it's just hard to make complex things simple, right? But we'll try always. We try with every client we speak with, everybody that I educate and coach, we do the same thing. We try to help them, simplify what seems complicated.
Mhm. So if we have, let's say for anyone that is listening, that is like, I have never even thought of talking with someone, of thinking about what my legacy is, any of that. But now that I'm listening, I'm kind of intrigued. What would be some of the tips or the direction that you would give someone just for them to kind of get in their head to be like, does this even make sense? Is this a direction I should go? So on and so forth.
So, I mean, a lot of it begins with getting organized. It begins with, like, organizing why you would want to work with somebody. Okay, so a lot of people say hear organization. It's like get all your statements together. Well, the first thing is
That's immediately where my brain went.
right. It's the organization is like of your thoughts first. Like, what would I want the outcome to be? Like, do I want to simplify so I know where all my money is? Do I want to plan for a particular goal? Do I just want to have peace of mind that like I'm on the right path for the next 20 years or 30 years or 40 years? Organize your thoughts first. Then yes, start organizing your statements. But without an organized thought process, you're out there looking for that one size fits all solution, right? I just want to give everybody my statements. You organize that, and then give me back a Big Mac. That's not what we want. we want you to be at the center of everything money related in your life, and your solution, you the listener, your solution is going to be different than mine and Kat's, no doubt, right? It's going to be totally different as a solution. And when you realize that, you can actually start getting excited about money. And that's the key, is we want people to get excited about money. We don't want them to log onto their log onto the online portal every day to see what it is. But you get excited about what money can do for you, like what it means at the end of your life, what it means for those experiences that you build. Because we're big on legacy, by the way. And I know I'm not going to have time to tell the whole story about why legacy is so important to me. But legacy is this thing that allows you to live beyond your actual physical death. And it's the stories that go, it's the meaning of your life. It is truly what we all should accomplish to, because that means we've been a good person. And so at the end of the day, if you can organize your thoughts, then organize your statements, and then start thinking about what you want the rest of your life to look for, then reach out to a financial professional to help make some sense of it. That's where like we can come in and do that.
I love that. And it's so interesting too, because if you would have asked me 6, 7 years ago, what does legacy mean to you, or what do you want your legacy to be? I probably would have looked at you with the biggest blank stare you ever seen,
Right.
just dumbfounded and confused that was even a question. Like, I don't think I would have been able to connect it the way I have the ability to connect it today. And I think that a lot of that comes from, we don't talk about it. We may have grown up in environments where money was a struggle, and we get to a point in life where we don't see money as a tool. We just see it as something that we have to have in order to get the things that we need, and hopefully the things that we want.
Right.
So it's really interesting in reframing and shifting the beliefs that we have been told or we might have grown up with, to understand that money is a tool and has the power to allow you to do all of these things. But it becomes something that can work with you, and not something that it's all that you can do is earn it and just hope that you can make it by.
That is so well said, because that's exactly, it's the realization that when people understand that there's these 5 elements that go together: my taxes, retirement income, investments, long-term care, and legacy. And then there's some micro things to that too. When you realize that sums it up, then it actually takes money off your mind. And it allows you to then create space to go do the things that you're really passionate about, so you can make an impact.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been mind blowing for me to see and understand, and being in an abusive relationship for 10 years, there was never enough money. I was always struggling. I worked 3 jobs. I was constantly having money stolen from me. Like, it was always a thing. And I ended up having to file for bankruptcy just to get a fresh start, when I got out of that. And it still wasn't really a conversation with anyone. It was just me figuring out how things needed to be. But being in the entrepreneurial space and being blessed to speak with people like you, I have learned so much. But it's really interesting to see the difference in how I used to think based on what I was in and what I was around and what I saw day to day, and what now I see the potential that lies in front of me. It's just 2 completely different worlds. But for anyone listening, I just want you to understand that if you're in that space space of absolutely not, money is a struggle, so on and so forth, just know that there really is light at the end of the tunnel if you decide to push through and do things differently. And you can get to this space where money becomes something that you enjoy and you get excited about, and it really can change the way that you do things in your life. So somebody needed to hear that. I just wanted to put that out there.
Preach it. Just preach it.
All right, Mike. So how can everybody find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting a copy of the One of a Kind Financial Planning book, that's
Yes.
something that we're offering for, the listeners to actually get a copy of. You could just reach out on my website, mikemilligan.com, and then just hit the contact us. And just put in the contact section on the investor side that you want a copy of the book, and we'll reach out to you and get that to you. If you want to have a direct conversation, I make it really easy to reach out to me. You can literally text to 600, 700. And, most people's like, that's not a phone number. But listen, this works, guys. You put 600, 700 in the phone number. You text the word ideas, 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 and you get direct to me. And that's then we could set up a time to talk one-on-one about your finances or meet with somebody on my team.
Oh, I love that. And I'm so excited about the book. Thank you so much. I'm getting me a copy.
Yeah.
I have been learning about finances. And of course, we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes. We'll make it super easy for you guys to find the link, be able to click on it and get over to Mike's website to get that. Please take the advantage, especially on something like that. And with someone that is so open and honest about the industry, since he doesn't like the corporate feel. Oh, goodness. Mike, thank you so much for all the information, for your open opinion, for doing different in a space that feels so cloaked in mystery, I feel like.
And thanks for sharing your journey so others know that the future is spotless and it's unlimited. So
No, thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Is there any last words you would like to leave the audience with, Mike, before we close out?
You guys, everybody listening, you are one of a kind. And if somebody tells you different, they're lying to you. You are unique. You're special. And when you realize that, you'll then determine you need like a financial plan that matches that, so your money can be put in motion, so you can go do the things you're called to and you're passionate about. So go make an impact.
I love that. Okay, we're just going to end on that because I think that's wonderful. And I love that you are one of a kind. Please don't put yourself in a box. Please know that you are you. And yes, there are going to be some similarities and stuff, but you are you. You are unique in you. And that's the beauty of being human, is being able to be that way. So go get a copy of Mike's book. We'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable